morning. Welcome to the Minnesota Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. If you haven't met me yet, I am Reverend Diana McLean, and I have the pleasure of serving as minister in this congregation. You are welcome here, however old or young you are, wherever you were born and grew up, whoever your ancestors were, and in whatever religious tradition you were raised, or if you were raised in none. You are welcome here, whatever your gender and whoever you love. You are welcome with whatever abilities and limitations you may have. We invite you to bring your whole self into this holy space. Whether this is your first time here or you have been with us for many years, your presence is always a gift to us. We're glad that you're here. We hope that you will be glad you came and that you will welcome others who come after you. After today's service, everyone is invited to share a spaghetti luncheon and conversation in the social hall downstairs. We look forward to this chance to make new friends and renew old acquaintances. Before we light our chalice, I have just one brief but important announcement this morning. Just a reminder that this Saturday at 2 p.m., we are co-ordaining our former ministerial intern, Chad Snyder, along with his home congregation of Merging Waters UU. The ordination will take place here at MVUUF, which is an honor, and we hope to see you all there. And now our chalice lighting.
Our shared hope for the world by Pat Urbine Licity. The chalice we light today is a symbol of our faith. It binds us together as one people, a reminder that our strength is in our shared hope for the world, and that our common work is a creation of beloved community among ourselves and in the world. Our opening words for this morning is written by the Reverend Michelle Collins, bearers of hope and resistance. Welcome to this place. A place of hope can be nourished in a world that profits from despair. Our gathering is a declaration of faith. We declare that joy still rises. The kindness still matters. The hope is not dead. We come to remember that we are not alone. May our time together restore us to wonder, strengthen our resolve, and return us to the world as bearers of hope that sustains the work of resistance. Our congregation will go into one of my favorite hymns, and the favorite hymn of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., hymn number 149, Lift Every Voice and Sing.
arrive here this morning, as we do every Sunday, with both joys and sorrows in our hearts. And one of the many promises that we make to each other here in this beloved community is that we will both help each other celebrate the joys in life and help each other bear the sorrows. This morning, before we shift to the personal joys and sorrows, I want to name the shared sorrow of the death of Renee Good last Wednesday, the fear in our Black, Brown, and immigrant communities and in our Twin Cities metro at large, as we have now entered a stage where the number of federal agents in our city outnumber our Twin Cities police forces. We are an occupied city. So we shoulder that burden together. We come together to find joy and hope, as both our readings and songs have indicated. And now, if you have a brief personal joy or sorrow to share, I invite you to raise your hand if you're here in the room, and an usher will bring you the microphone. If you are online, we invite you to type it into the chat, and it will be read aloud here in the room.
Good morning, I'm Karen Olson, and I'm reading on behalf of Alexander Barrett, who has taken back his birth name, so goes by Alexander Kleinschmidt now. He has, and here's what he says. I have been really struggling with both my mental health and my physical capabilities due to my carpal tunnel surgeries, and he has his second one this Tuesday. I need help organizing all the stuff in my apartment and taking some to storage. Organizing, cleaning, meals, or even just company in the afternoons would be a huge help. He could also use help with paperwork and phone calls, or just someone to be there when he does these things. So let's send some love his way, and I can get in touch with him if anyone doesn't have contact info. And Alexander, if you're listening, we do love you.
Hi, I'm Lee, and I just would like to express my thanks to LIFT, Learning in Fellowship Together, for the wonderful concert they put on yesterday. They had a gentleman named Nate Hance who was here. He was such a talented and wonderful pianist. It was just a joy to watch him play, and he brought a lot of humor to it too. So thank you, LIFT.
Hello, I'm the mother of the screaming child, and I'm just like, let's be patient with all of our children. You know, my son's autistic, so we don't know how much he really knows what's going on, but he does know something's going on when mom has to dash to Minneapolis and is constantly on her computer because Renee did not die in vain, and many people are just inquiring about our works, and you guys know that I do work for Indivisible, so yeah, the resistance is strong, she's not dying in vain, and the patience with children, because they know something's up. So that's why they're probably acting the way they're acting. Thank you.
And I'm going to expand that and say patience with ourselves and each other as well. Thank you, Sarah.
Good morning. As a counterpoint to the tragedy of this week, it's never lost on me the beauty and the goodness that is also surrounding us all of the time. And I'm so grateful for my Longfellow, Minneapolis neighborhood, and the outpouring of support for our immigrant neighbors and friends is so heartwarming to counter the pain that I just feel constantly right now. And another joy, I knew I would be emotional, so this is not a surprise to me. Another joy is that Chris and Gabe and Grace and I, coincidentally, are headed to Canada this week. So after having attended some protests and vigils, it feels like a nice time to have a little distance from the intensity of what's happening here and to solidify our permanent resident status in Canada. So, yeah.
I have a sorrow I want to share this week. A friend of mine who's 26, the same age as me, was picked up by ICE. She's a legal U.S. citizen, adopted from Vietnam, and this is the first time it's happened close to me. And just want us to hold her in our hearts together.
Good morning, my name is Laura. I just wanted to share a hope this morning. My husband has, sorry. Good morning, my name is Laura. I just wanted to share a hope this morning. My husband has been out of work for the past 3 years following a concussion, and he had a job interview last week, so prayers and positive energy that it all goes well for him would be very, very appreciated. Thank you.
We have a joy online from Laura. She says, my joy is that I will be closing on a house this week. And then I'm Kathleen Code. I have a personal joy. My daughter, Genevieve, Jeannie, you may know her as Jenna, is joining us on Zoom right now. So yeah.
Nice. Hi. I'm just waving to Jenna.
Yes. Sorry, we confused people by waving not for the microphone, but to say hi to Jenna.
Yeah.
All right, well, seeing no other hands in the room, I'll just name that always there are some joys and sorrows that are either too tender to be shared in this moment, or maybe perhaps too personal to be shared ever in a group this large. But we know that there are people carrying those things, and so we join them and carry those in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. Please join me in the musical response.
Our singing words today are by Congressman and Civil Rights legend John Lewis. From his book, Carry On, Reflections for a New Generation. What can you do to get into good trouble? There is a light inside of you that will turn on when you get into good trouble. You will feel emboldened and freed. You will realize that unjust laws cannot stop you. These laws cannot stop the truth that is in your heart and soul.
Generosity is one of the spiritual qualities that we aspire to, part of our Unitarian Universalist shared values, and it is one of the tangible practices that we nurture here in this fellowship. With our offering in every Sunday service, we give of our financial resources to support the work of the fellowship. We know, of course, that giving financially is only one of the ways that we support that work. We also do it with our time and with our talents and sometimes with our food. All of those are necessary for the vital work that we do here, both for each other within the fellowship and for the wider community. We also donate half of our collection every Sunday to support one of our community partners, organizations who are in alignment with our values, and we choose a recipient organization for each month of the year. For January, our sharing partner is Joyce Uptown Food Shelf, whose mission is to distribute food to those in need with respect and dignity. You can give in person as baskets are brought around, or online using the QR code either on the screen or on the back of the printed order of service, or you can use the Donate Online link on our website now or into the rest of the month for this particular donation. Please give as generously as you are able.
Awesome, Lark. This morning, we actually have two readings, both by John Lewis from the book, Across That Bridge, A Vision for Change in the Future of America. In the first reading, Lewis wrote, "You are light. You are the light. Never let anyone, any person, or any force dampen, dim, or diminish your light. Study the path of others to make your way easier and more abundant. Lean toward the whispers of your own heart. Discover the universal truth and follow its dictates. Release the need to hate, to harbor division, and the enticement of revenge. Release all bitterness. Hold only love, only peace in your heart, knowing that the battle of good to overcome evil has already been won. Choose confrontation wisely. But when it is in your time, don't be afraid to stand up, or speak out against any injustice. And if you follow your truth down the road to peace and the affirmation of love, if you shine like a beacon for all to see, then the poetry of all the great dreamers and philosophers are yours to manifest in a nation, a world community, and a beloved community that is finally at peace with itself. In the second reading, Lewis wrote, I have seen the restlessness among the people before. It was in another millennium, another decade, and at another time in our history. But it pushed through America like a storm. In 10 short years, there was a tempest that transformed what the American Revolution did not address. But the Constitution and the Bill of Rights were afraid to confront. What the Civil War did not unravel. What Reconstruction tried to mediate. And Jim Crow did his best to retrench. This mighty wind made a fundamental shift in the moral character of our nation that have reached every sector of our society. And this history lends us to one powerful reminder today. Listen, nothing can stop the power of a committed and determined people to make a difference in this society. Those people are my ancestors. Made a lot of sacrifice for me to even be here.
Thank you, Greg, both for being here and for bringing us the words of John Lewis. So I said last week that current events had made Maria and I rethink our service for last week, and guess what? Yet again, current events have made me think differently about what I had originally planned for this week's sermon. We're still going to talk this morning about how joy can be resistance and resistance can be joy. You've already heard that thread woven through our readings and our music. But first, I have to acknowledge that, of course, not all resistance is joyful. Sometimes it is instead full of grief, or of what I have been calling holy rage, both of which are present in abundance in the Twin Cities this week in the wake of the killing of Renee Good. I've been doing my best to get into some good trouble. I've been at 4 public events in the last 5 days in my role as a clergy person, wearing a clerical collar, which I know startled a few of you. My apologies if I triggered past religious trauma, but we laugh, but it's true that there are people for whom seeing me in all black and a clerical collar reminded them of some unpleasant memories. However, it is my most easy way to be recognizable in the community as clergy, and right now that's important. So I'm out there in my collar and very often in this, my Side with Love stole. I went to a vigil at the site of Renee's death on Wednesday evening with thousands of other people. I attended a clergy press conference at that same site at noon on Thursday. On Friday afternoon, I was part of a clergy support network that showed up in response to a request from some of our Somali neighbors to offer them protection as they prayed at the site. There's a whole long story about what happened that day that we don't have time for today, but ask me if you're curious. And then yesterday, I was at a press conference at the Richfield Target store, midday yesterday, in response to 2 employees of that store being taken by ICE on Thursday. Some of you were there with me yesterday. Thank you for joining me. While none of those events could exactly be called joyful, I do want to name that there have been moments that at least leaned toward joy, even amidst our grief and our anger these last several days. I'll name just some of them for you. Please know this is just a sampling. At the Wednesday night vigil, when our grief was still fresh and raw, not that it's much less fresh or raw now, but even more so that evening, young Indigenous women sang a song of healing for the gathered crowd of thousands, while other Indigenous participants burned sage in various parts of the crowd. On Thursday, as I moved toward the spot where the press conference would be held in my collar and stole, residents of the neighborhood thanked me and the other clergy for coming to be with them. That has been true, actually, of every event I have attended at the crime scene. Yes, there is anger in that community and grief, but what is most noticeable to me each time I go there is the feeling of the community coming together, an already tightly knit community, coming together, caring for each other, and also for those of us coming in from outside the neighborhood to be with them, and expressing gratitude for each other's care. One of the ways they expressed that care was by setting up a mutual aid station at one end of the block where she died, with water bottles, food, medicine, other things that might be needed, a little bonfire where people could warm up. And the city bulldozed that mutual aid station, claiming that it was in the way of potential first responder vehicles, despite the fact that they were fully prepared to move a barricade if needed, if such a vehicle needed to arrive. They were simply trying to protect their community, and they were doing it with joy. At Friday's event, when we were there at the request of some of our Somali neighbors, several Somali women walked through the crowd with large trays of hot sambusas, offering physical sustenance and also kindness to all who had gathered. At yesterday's event at the Target store, one of my joys was being joined there by several of you. Another was the number of supportive honks and waves from passing cars, and at least one person who yelled out their car window, "We love what you are doing." There were a few people offering less enthusiastic responses, but by and large, we were well supported by the wider community. And while I wasn't at the large protest of about 5,000 people in Powderhorn Park yesterday afternoon, I saw a video of it last night, and one of the videos was of people who arrived at a slippery hill that they had to get down to get to the gathering spot, and they sat down and basically sledded without sleds. Some of them used their signs as a sled, and others just slid on their behinds while holding their signs down the hill, and that video had laughter and joy in it, as well as defiance. As I was working on this sermon over these last couple of days, I wanted to get clear in my own mind about the difference between joy and happiness, because we're not feeling a lot of happiness in this situation, but I do believe we can still claim some joy. So I did what I do. I did some research. You're getting to know me well enough that you're probably not surprised that that's the approach I took. One of the things I found was an article on the website compassion.com, an article entitled, "What is the Difference Between Joy and Happiness?" which is exactly what I was looking for. And one of the things that the article says is that joy transcends and happiness reacts. Joy, they say, is a practice and a behavior. It's deliberate and intentional, where happiness comes and goes along the way. The article also says happiness depends on external factors. When we hear a favorite joke, we laugh. When someone gives us a gift, we smile. When we hear our favorite song, maybe we dance or sing along. Happiness happens to us in those kinds of moments. The article says, even though we may seek it, desire it, and pursue it, feeling happy is not a choice we make. Joy, on the other hand, is a choice we purposefully make. Even if our day-to-day is filled with hurt and disappointment, we can still choose joy. Joy can share space with other emotions, according to the article, such as sadness and fear, but happiness can't. Happiness isn't present in darkness and difficulty, but joy can be. That article reminded me of a long ago, like decades ago, conversation with my good friend Linda King. She and I were roommates at a conference, and we were having a conversation. I don't remember how it started, but a conversation about joy, and neither of us could quite define it. We couldn't quite get our hands around what we thought it meant, so we looked it up online. Not long after that, we went downstairs in the hotel to the lobby to head to whatever was next on our agenda, and we met up with Phil Bolander, who was Linda's friend and soon became mine too. He asked us what we'd been up to during the break, and we told him, which led to a lengthy and fascinating discussion about the concept of joy. And Phil said something that just had Linda and I sort of stunned and awed and puzzled all at the same time. He said that for him, joy isn't something you have or something you seek, it's something you are, something you choose to be in the world. Through Phil's lens, I would say that the women with trays of sambusas were being joy. They were embodying joy, whether or not they were feeling any happiness in the moment, though they did seem to be feeling happy to share with their neighbors. And the crowds at each of these events have also been joy when we chanted together or sang together. Speaking of singing, some of you have heard me talk about a playlist that I have on my phone, which I call Spiritual Sustenance. As you might guess from that title, listening to the songs in that playlist when I need nourishing is one of my regular spiritual practices. One of the songs on that playlist is a song called This Joy by the fabulous Resistance Revival Chorus. Are any of you already familiar with it? I knew Lark would be. Okay, it's a great song. I encourage you to go look it up. For licensing reasons, out of respect to the musicians, I'm not playing that song for you today, but I do want to share just one set of lyrics from it, and I'm going to speak them rather than sing them. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. Now, the song is a zipper song, which means that it's one that has a repeating set of verses with just a small word change each time. So the word joy is replaced in subsequent verses with strength, love, pride, and peace, and then it finishes with another round of joy. That song was actually part of the inspiration for this service when I began planning it months ago with no idea what the context would be when we would come to this day. The Who We Are page on the chorus's website says, the Resistance Revival Chorus is a collective of more than 60 women and non-binary singers who join together to breathe joy and song into the resistance and to uplift and center women's voices. I love that phrase, breathe joy into the resistance. This doesn't mean denying our other feelings, denying anyone's pain or suffering. It does not mean that we don't understand the seriousness of the situation we find ourselves in. It just means that there can be joy alongside all of the other experiences of being in resistance. Something I probably haven't shared here with you yet is that the inside of my wedding ring and also my wife's are engraved with the words defiantly joyful. This is joy as resistance. This is what the minister who married us in October 2020 after Amy Coney Barrett was confirmed to the Supreme Court and we feared that we might lose the right to marry each other. That's what that minister saw in us. We were fearful, yes. We were angry, yes. But we were also joyful. We chose to have a beautiful wedding ceremony, mostly on Zoom due to COVID, with 2 ministerial colleagues we love and our immediate families. We chose to have a celebration rather than to just do the minimum it would take to get legally married after having already been together for years and having already had a private commitment ceremony. We chose joy over grim determination. Or maybe it would be more honest to say we chose joy alongside grim determination.
Yes.
Either way, there was joy, and it made that day beautiful in a time that was not feeling particularly beautiful. This is nothing new. Marginalized groups, whether based on sexual orientation or race or another factor, immigration status, marginalized groups have said for a long time that our joy is an act of resistance, living our lives with joy in the face of hate and oppression. The wider world isn't always what gives us our joy. We are what gives us our joy. I have both experienced that firsthand, and I have often witnessed it in others. One of the primary examples I think of when I think about that joy as resistance is that last March, I participated in my 3rd Living Legacy pilgrimage. These Living Legacy Project is an organization that's sort of UU adjacent. It's not UU specifically, but many UUs are involved in it, that takes people, primarily white people, to the southern United States to learn about our civil rights history. And so I was on my 3rd trip to different locations in the South through their organization. It was an immersion in the history of the civil rights work in the southern United States. Nearly every speaker who met with our pilgrimage group talked about the direct connections between the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s and the struggle for civil rights happening right now. Now, this was a year ago, so our struggle has shifted some in that time, but everything they said still rings true for me. Many of the speakers, maybe even all of them, spoke about how the rights that were gained back then have been diminished or threatened today. More than that, though, they spoke about how we, the activists and ordinary people of today, can draw not only lessons, but also spiritual sustenance from the techniques of previous generations. And Greg gestured at that with his reading and his comments after the reading. On our bus during the pilgrimage, we were often led in song. We had the gift of having on that trip 2 incredible Black musicians as song leaders for our group, Reggie Harris and Melanie DeMore, both of whom I commend to all of you if you aren't familiar with them yet. You can find them easily online. We intentionally, on our buses, sang songs that the Freedom Riders of the 1960s sang on their buses, many of which were African American spirituals, sometimes with adapted words for the purpose of the civil rights movement. Melanie spoke about how the movement back then needed both songs of lament and songs of jubilee. That's her phrase, songs of jubilee. That resistance required the presence of joy alongside pain and sorrow, or we wouldn't be able to keep going. Among other songs on that bus, we sang upbeat movement songs like Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around and This Little Light of Mine, which I have to tell you took on an entirely different tenor for me singing it in that context than it did when I was a young child and learned it when visiting friends' Christian Sunday schools, and I thought of it as just a Sunday school song. Very different in the context of the movement.
That's what music does.
That is what music does, absolutely. We also learned about something called the ring shout. How many people here have ever heard of the ring shout? I had not either until I went on this trip. It is a spiritual practice among the Gullah people of the Sea Islands along the coasts of South Carolina and Alabama. Communities of formerly enslaved people who maintained and adapted many of the traditions of the African cultures from which they had been abducted. In the ring shout, a song is often begun slowly. Commonly, it's a song drawing lyrics from the Exodus story and from other stories from the Jewish scriptures, which Christians often refer to as the Old Testament. At a certain point in the singing, not a scripted point, but as people are moved, people begin to add hand clapping and foot stomping, often in elaborate rhythms which I could not possibly duplicate for you today, so I'm not going to try. And the tempo of the song speeds up along with the clapping and the stomping. A member of the Gullah community spoke with us about how those songs were designed both to acknowledge the pain of daily life and to give people relief from it by shifting to joyous, high-energy music in community. This was one of the practices that helped sustain the Gullah people spiritually and emotionally through extreme hardship and poverty. Sometimes joy and even humor are not only a way to sustain our own spirits while engaging in resistance, but an actual intentional tool of resistance. There was an opinion column written for Politico in September of 2024 titled, "Kamala Harris is using a strategy rooted in civil rights activism." It's written by Black writer Cheryl Cashin, and she was talking about the various opinions people had about Harris's focus on joy during her campaign. Do you remember that she made joy a focus of her campaign, and some people really pushed back against that? So the author, Cashin, said, "Joy and its companion, fun, are powerful political weapons. Weapons that have been used successfully to undermine the ridiculous habits of white supremacy." She says, "It's a strategy rooted in decades of civil rights activism in which joy, particularly Black joy, is used as an instrument for political change. Joy can be much more transformative than lecturing or scolding," she says. "It's also a tactic I know well." This is again her speaking. "In my own family's civil rights organizing, fun was used as a mobilizer, a way to laugh and be resilient in the face of the outrages of structural racism." She tells a story saying, "Back in 1963, my mother and father arrived at the Ryman Auditorium's Grand Ole Opry in Nashville at a time when the state's Jim Crow laws required it to be segregated. They were dressed in a gown and tux, respectively, driven in an antique Rolls Royce by a white couple dressed as chauffeur and maid. The white couple were fellow activists and friends from the Unitarian Church. The chauffeur got out and opened the back door to escort my glamorous parents past the crowd at the entrance. He handed someone a $100 bill to park the car, the maid following close behind. If the gatekeepers had any thought of objecting to Black people entering, they were not prepared for this scene. My father moved swiftly, presenting his tickets and stating his case. 'This is my trusted chauffeur and butler.' 'Oh, and I have to have my maid,' my mother added. They had reframed the issue. Would the white servants be excluded? Of course not. An usher escorted them down to the front row, and a hush fell over the audience. On that night, Nashville's Jim Crow was subverted through bloodless audacity and mocking humor, a relentless practice my parents and others had used to successfully desegregate public accommodations in Huntsville, Alabama the year before."
Awesome.
Yes. This biracial group of change agents would stage other spectacles, laughing and having fun as they fought for Black freedom and freedom for all. Stories similar to this, stories of creative acts of resistance that often include joy as well as determination and courage, were part of all three of those civil rights pilgrimages that I participated in. And as Cashin says in her article, moments of fun can be pivotal in politics, an easier way of turning the page to a brighter future than pummeling voters with grim entreaties. Now, there is certainly plenty that we could be grim about. Nobody is denying that. And sometimes grimness is the right response. But that is not spiritually or emotionally sustainable for very long, not for an individual, not for a group. So while of course the reasons for the rallies and vigils taking place right now in the Twin Cities and across the country are serious, that doesn't mean that the events themselves must be entirely somber. Even prior to this last week, I've been at plenty of rallies and vigils over the last decade or so, including the Hands Off and No Kings rallies last spring and summer. At those rallies, there were signs of all kinds, many of them humorous. Just a few of my favorites were, "It's so dire, even the introverts are here," which I thought of on Wednesday when my wife went with me to the vigil at the site of the murder of Renee Good. It was her first ever in the streets action of that kind as a clergy person. Not because she's new clergy, she's not, because she's an introvert. And because not everybody's lane is being in the streets, and I'll be talking to you more about that as we go forward together as a congregation, but not today. There was also a sign that said, "A lot of y'all didn't Google tariffs and it shows." And that one also had on it a picture of the teacher from the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off saying, "Anyone? Anyone?" There were also clowns, a person dressed as the wealthy man from the Monopoly board game, a woman dressed as a suffragist in a white dress with a Votes for Women sash, and giant papier-mâché Trump and Elon Musk figures. Those folks took a playful approach to the rallies, and they made the rest of us smile. I'm still seeing that tactic being used at some of the events happening just in the last several days. At one anti-ICE rally, I saw someone in a clown suit, and I think they had a small, clown car with them, but I'm not sure about that part. But they had a sign that said, "Hire clowns, expect a circus." It got the point across, and again, it also made at least some of us smile. This is not to say that all of our resistance must be joyful. We also need to be serious at times. What I am saying is that a joyless resistance is both harder on those engaging in it and less attractive to those who might consider joining it. We can sing and dance and play on our way to the goal of freedom and justice for all. May it be so. I invite you to rise, embody your spirit, and join in singing hymn number 1018, "Come and Go With Me."
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom.
Thank you for that joyful singing, friends. As we prepare to shift from our Sunday service to our luncheon, don't forget to come downstairs for the luncheon. And then as we move into the week ahead, may we engage in joyous resistance as often as we can. And may we remember that joy itself is a form of resistance. Please join me in the chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.